Today we're discussing our 5 pillars for how we as D1 athletes running cross country and track at Stanford stay healthy and energized during really difficult and heavy training blocks. You can use them as well, and we're going to explain all of them in depth to make it very simple and easy.
They sound like
So our very first pillar is nutrition and hydration, and we're here out in beautiful St. Moritz to tell you about it. So, I mean, it's obviously like everyone knows you have to drink water and you need to eat food, but there's a lot to how you do it that can really change how you feel. Me personally, I aim for a lot of water, but not just the volume, but also, you know, a lot of, I want to make sure I get in stuff to help myself hydrate, like salt, like these things. It's not an ad, but like, you know, having some sort of salt can really help, whether that's Noon or these or Propel packets. Like, I like these because I think they taste the best, but getting something in like that to help you retain more water, not just consume all of it, but actually retain it, is really valuable, especially if you're up in a place like this where you're at altitude, or if you're in hot weather. That can do a lot. So that's a massive thing. I always try and drink at least 32 ounces when I wake up in the morning before I run. I think that helps me get a really good start to the day. So that's something I would really recommend. And then just continuing to hydrate throughout the day. Like, I usually will get in at least like a gallon and a half. I know Leo's the same way, but
I'd probably have more.
Yeah, maybe even more. So you just like water, like don't underestimate the power of water, but also I wouldn't go like 2 gallons just because you can overhydrate. You definitely can, but yeah, make sure you're drinking enough. And the other side of things is the food, you know? So I think not eating enough is one of the worst things a runner can do. And like drinking, you know, it's kind of obvious, you know, you got to eat enough because that's your fuel. But seriously, if you're not eating enough food, that's how you're going to get, you know, injured, because you don't have enough nutrients to recover your body properly. You know, that's how stress reactions and fractures happen. You know, that's how you end up without energy in your runs. Like, if you want to feel energetic and you want to have that that extra strong power when you're running and doing workouts, it's really important that you eat enough. Like, I just always eat. Whenever I'm hungry, I eat. That's like my rule of thumb. Like, I feel any sensation of hunger, I eat, because I'd always rather eat more than less. So, and then also what you eat, I think it's really good to try and get unprocessed foods whenever possible, you know? Like, the closer you see it to the actual thing you're eating, the better. So like, instead of eating like some weird processed apple dessert, just eat an apple, you know? Same thing, like, you just eat the eggs. Like, you know, eat bread that's not like heavily processed, you don't even know what it's made of. But yeah, so just keep it simple and just really try and satisfy what your body is yearning for with food and water. If you're thirsty, drink. If you're hungry, eat, you know? So our second pillar, I know this is a little bit out of chronology of when we filmed it, but we chose this time because we are in active transportation, meaning, that sounds fancy, but you know, we're traveling, we're in a day of travel. So this second pillar is time management. I think deciding how you manage your time when you choose to go on your runs and when you choose, you know, certain elements of your day can really affect how you feel. So for instance, today we woke up at 5:45 because we had to drive down from the hills to Zurich for 8 a.m. for our onboarding. And then we had that until 12. And now we're going to go pack and then drive to St. Moritz. So most of the day is already taken up. So instead of waking up at say like 4 or something, trying to get my run way early in the morning, I'm rather going to try and wait until we get to St. Moritz, which is obviously a beautiful destination, and I'll try and run around sunset. And now, while I may kind of, you know, there's trade-offs, you know, so I may be a little bit more tired because it's the evening, but I got more sleep because I didn't wake up so early. You know, I think, I also think another example, or another reason why that's good is I'm not breaking up. I could also break up the drive, say, and do it like halfway through, but then I would be sitting for the entire time, and I'd rather get to St. Moritz, kind of unpack a little bit, you know, have a snack, and then run, let myself kind of be, you know, have some movement before I actually go to run. And that's a very specific instance, but I think you can apply it in a broader sense, in just that, you know, you want to try and, there's a couple things that you could schedule around, like for instance, time of day, like you know, the heat. You know, you don't want to be running when it's really bad weather. You know,
there's a lot of factors.
Yeah, like meals. Yeah, like
meals.
Cole's you know, been doing this for longer than we have. So
yeah, it's all about experimenting too. There's an element of, you know, trying different. Well, I feel like with experimentation, with experience, you gain a level of adaptability, which I think is the most important aspect, where you can, given a situation or a day like today where we have a lot of moving parts, I think it's just easier to be like, all right, that's fine. Like we can maybe run at lunchtime, and then we realize or decided to maybe head out earlier to beat traffic. But I think if you keep a positive demeanor and are adaptable, and realize that it's not the end of the world to do a sunset run, like if you're positive and adaptable, like, oh yeah, that's a great opportunity. Like say Moritz for an evening run under the sunset, under the stars, like yeah.
Yeah, bring the optimism, like look at how awesome of an opportunity that is. And honestly, everything is more enjoyable when you look at things like that. You can get way more excited. Yeah,
absolutely.
So that's the pillar.
Yeah.
Well, we made it to the small Italian town of Chiavenna. At least I believe that's kind of how it's pronounced. I don't know if I don't think my quarter Italian is helping me very much right here. But yeah, it's beautiful. The point that I want to discuss is mileage and being very smart and deliberate about how you actually build into it and the amount that you allow yourself to take on, because you really don't want to bite off more than you can chew, but at the same time you want to get the most out of your training, right? I think a really overlooked thing is the general development of an athlete. A good example is, like, say as a freshman in high school, Lex and I, we probably only ran 40 to 50 miles a week, maybe even less, not more than 50, mid-40s. We were doing like 6-mile runs every day, and that's a very small amount compared to what we're doing now. But it's important that we had that, and we worked very slow from there over the past 5 or so years, to the point where seniors in high school, we were doing mid-high 60s, maybe touching low 70s sometimes, going for 8 to 9 mile easy runs and 12 to 14 mile long runs on occasion, but at the same time never pushing the agenda too hard. Coming into our freshman year of college, naturally you make it a little bit more intense. During the summer we were hitting up to 85 miles a week, which is a jump, but it's not a huge jump compared to what we were doing before, which meant that it was manageable and we didn't feel like we were necessarily drowning in the training. That's a really important thing, because I think that a lot of people, when they get into college, they feel obligated to jump up to these very high mileage numbers, and while maybe in the short run it might benefit you, in the long run it might be very difficult, because you're not as prepared to do it as if you had been slowly building up.
And you get injured.
And you can get injured very easily. Remember, this section all really comes back to injury prevention and maintaining a manageable workload that we can stay energetic through training. All right, well, there's a lot of distracting noises here. I think that is a good summary of this section. It's really, really important, and while it seems very obvious, I suggest you guys all, especially if this is a question for you, really ponder it, think about your mileage, think about things you can do a little better, things that you're doing really well, and just make sure that you're not taking on too much, but at the same time, doing what you can to benefit yourself. All right, on to the next section. All right, in this next section, we're talking about footwear, the shoes you wear while running, because they may be one of the most important factors when you're thinking about your training. I'll break it down into 4 different categories of shoes. We'll start with trainers, high cushion trainers, plated flats, and spikes. These are very different types of shoes, and they have very different purposes within training. The first one is just your typical trainer. I ideally look for something that's not plated, something that's not too high in foam or cushion, as I want to still be doing all the work, and I don't want something that's helping me out too much. The application for this shoe, I like to use it for all of my easy runs, warm-ups, cool-downs, things like that. It's really just my go-to shoe for everyday running. The next category is your high cushion trainer, which, say, a good example would be the On Cloud Monster Hyper. It's similar to the Cloud Monster, but has a little bit more responsive foam and a little bit more of it. Now, the benefit of this shoe is that when you're doing, say, a long run or a double during a high mileage week, it can kind of save your legs a little bit and reduce a little bit of the impact on your legs, and you can feel a little bit better in the moment. But there's certainly drawbacks. I find that I have a little bit of a harder time like really engaging my mechanics and benefiting my mechanics while I'm doing that. But at the same time, it helps because you can get the training in while taking a little bit of a smaller toll on your body during the run itself. Next category is your workout flat. It's super important. It's something that we're seeing huge developments in the industry around these types of shoes. My personal go-to at the moment is the On Echo Boom 3. I've used this shoe for so long. I've been using it since I've been using it long before I was even sponsored by On. I'm that big of a fan of it. But it's great. You know, it's a very stiff shoe. It's a plated shoe. It's very responsive. And honestly, it feels great. And I like to use it for any sort of workout in cross country where we're on dirt, grass, hills, even on the track, doing maybe K repeats. I'll use it for really anything down to maybe like 57-second pace for 400. It's really a versatile type of shoe, and I like to stay in these flats for as long as possible in workouts before I move to spikes, just because I think that while they may be more tolling on your body than something like a trainer, they're still less tolling on your body than something like a spike. There's a place for everything. Next category and final category are spikes. The spike that we've been using for a while, Lex and I, the spike that I really like, On 10,000 meter spike. It's a great spike. It works for everything. I use it for 1500s. I think it works for everything. But it's very stiff, it's plated, and it feels amazing. Everyone knows when to use spikes pretty much. I like to use it for workouts when I'm getting really, really fast. I always race in them. But it's not, obviously you'd never go for a run in spikes, but I think that same theory of, you know, like a spike is so aggressive and you want to go for a run in it. It's something that you can take to a lot of the other categories, because I think sometimes it can be overlooked. You know, like a flat, sometimes people overuse them and you could maybe put yourself at risk of injury. Same thing with these high cushion trainers that everyone is starting to really like. If you use it too much, you could also put yourself at risk of maybe injury or other issues. And I just think that it's important that you guys yourselves, you know, take the information that I'm saying, you know, think about it, make your own decisions, of course, but really just take a look at the shoes that you're wearing and make sure that you're wearing your shoes with a purpose. That way, you know, you can stay healthy and get the most out of your training.
To bring it full circle back to our original shooting location, I want to talk about our last, but certainly not least, and honestly, I think this is the most important pillar, and that's sleep. So everybody knows you want to get a lot of sleep. You know, the industry thing that people say is 8 to 10 hours. I think that's absolutely true, and that's what I aim for myself. But you didn't come here just to hear 8 to 10 hours. You know, there's a lot more to it than just that. And I'm a strong believer that it's not just the quantity of the sleep, but the quality. I think a really important factor that a lot of people overlook is not just like the amount of sleep that you get, but kind of how you're sleeping, right? Like the quality of it is really important. And you can loop this back to like our kind of evolutionary roots, where when you're sleeping, a lot of times you need to be on alarm because there could be other tribes, there could be animals. And think about like going backpacking or maybe sleeping in a hostel. Like it's really important that you find a place where you feel comfortable and can relax. That way you can get that quality sleep. And now I know that's easier said than done because, you know, it can take a lot of difficult change to find a place where you can sleep. But even if you can't do that, I think there's ways that you can optimize kind of how you're sleeping that make yourself feel more relaxed. So me personally, you know, I like to try and cut out screens if I can early before I go to bed. Then I think also, you know, reading a book can be helpful. That usually helps me ease my mind and try and fall asleep. You know, I find that I don't sleep well if I just immediately stop doing homework and then try and brush my teeth and go to bed 10-15 minutes later. I think it's nice to kind of have a transition period where you can kind of let your mind start to go to bed, because if you have just these running thoughts all night, it can make it hard for your body to really get into those deeper states of sleep. And that can be different for everyone, you know, like maybe for you that's playing a round of your favorite video game. Like that could help, but some way to kind of disconnect from the stresses of the outside world, I think can really increase the amount and the way that you sleep, you know, and that's gonna, looping back to the original point, that's how you're gonna feel the most well rested and, you know, keep that energy and stay recovered. And now the second point on sleep that I wanna make is not just how much, but when. I think starting your sleep before midnight is really crucial. Now, I'm speaking more from my perception than any technical analysis, but one thing that I know to be true is that when I go to bed from 12 to 8, I do not feel as rested as when I go to bed from 10 to 6. And even better, if I were to go to bed from 10 to 8, I would feel even better, you know? So I think it's really valuable that you try and get to sleep at a reasonable time rather than just aiming for the length and the duration. You know, so I personally try and aim to be in bed around 10:30. I think that works well for me, and then I'll wake up around 8 or 8:30, and that gives me a really solid amount of time and starting at a good time. And I like to loop that back to your circadian rhythm of, you know, just the sun, you know, and the moon. You know, like we're animals that, you know, are living outdoors, you know, so there's a natural, you know, swing of things with the moon and the sun, you know, like, I mean, I guess not really so much the moon, but like, you know, when it's bright outside, we don't want to sleep. When it's dark, we do. So I think too much sleep in the morning when it's already been bright, I don't find it to be as valuable as going to bed at 8, or not 8, but like, 10 o'clock after the sun is already set. So I think that's a really important point to make.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching the video. While I think a lot of the things that we said may seem very straightforward and simple, one thing that I found over time is that a lot of these things, while straightforward, if you take a look at them, there really is a lot of room for improvement. And the more I focus in on these little things, the more I'm able to really dial in my routine and actually, I think, become a lot better as a result. So, hopefully this applies to you guys' own training, and we sure do have a lot more videos, hopefully some more informational ones like this coming this summer, so stay tuned.